Okay, so I think let's step back from the Corgi engine for a minute and let's go to the Sunnyland asset. We would like to have a platformer with tile maps and pixel art that is provided already by the Sunnyland asset. I need to give you a small crash course about that one. So there are three things you need to consider when you are importing a sprite sheet of pixel art, because pixel art is special. You want to have a crisp image, you want to have that very clear on your screen, and therefore you need to have at least two settings which are important. If you have imported it, they will be alright out of the box, but if you have downloaded it from the internet or have maybe do your own pixel art, then you have here two things that you need to set first. That's the filter mode. It should be with point no filter. If I'm not mistaken, bilinear is the default. And the second one is the compression. It should be to none. I think it's the normal quality as default. I cannot remember that one. But without those two, your image will not be crisp. So these are important. The other thing that you need to consider is the pixels per unit. If I just take this here, and drag and drop it in here, then you will see it's a very small image. You can handle that. I mean, you can change your grades, you can do your own thing with it, but I personally prefer to have it a little bit bigger. So what I do is, I know that most of the artwork of the environments, let's go here to the environments and let's go to the tileset sliced. You see here there are 16 by 16 pixels. So what I will do in here is I will do the same here with my sprites. I select all of them and tell him that I would like to have that 16 pixels per unit, and I apply that to all of them. Okay, so every time you want to import one, just please check that you have here really the 16 pixels per unit applied to it, else you will have it too small. And now if I drag and drop that in here, then it's much bigger. I think it's more natural to work that way. So let's create our character. Let's make a prefab. So there are again different ways to do that. The easiest one is just to take one of those, drag and drop in here, and then you have already your prefab, which you can then call Fox, and that's it. But I personally think it's the best thing if we already start with an animation, because it would be easier later when we create our character. So as a beginner, I would say just get rid of that one and let's make an animation. And to make an animation, that's not as difficult as you would think, because Unity understands that if you are dropping more than one sprite into your scene, that you want to have an animation. So let's go here to assets and create a new folder called animations. And here we will have the Fox underscore Fox idle animation. Very well. So what does it mean? We have now here in the animation, we have the Fox idle animation itself, and we have here something that is different. That is the animator controller. let's just stay at the moment with the animation itself. The animation itself means you have in here the different sprites and you see when they will change. So let's play in here this animation, then you see that moving. Now, how did I get this animation? Well, it's very easy. Let's close the tab. You can just go here to the window, you can go to animation, and then you can have your animation, and then, oh man, drag and dropping in it here. So when we click on the scene to your character, you see that moving. So let's say you would like to have it a little bit slower. You can say, let's say 6, change the value in here, and then it's much slower. I think that 8 is the charm in here. But you can decide here by yourself, and believe me, once you start to tweak around, you can lose hours with it. So that's the animation. Now we have here the animation controller, and because this is a controller, I will name it accordingly. Fox Anim Controller. So what does it mean? We have here the animator. Again, I took it from here, from animation, animator. And this will handle the animations later. So at the moment we only have Fox idle, but we have maybe later a Fox run, a Fox jump, and Fox climb, and I don't know how much things we would like to add into our games. And then you can change the states depending on different logics like values or something like that, but we will come later to it. But the important thing is that you have here your animation and your animation controller, so that it's easier for us to create than our character. So now the next thing to do is to convert that to a prefab. So first of all, let's give him a good name, Mr. Fox. So, and now that we have here the fox, we could do a prefab out of it. So let's create here under assets, we create a new folder called Prefabs. And now you just take that fox and move it in here. And then you see he has changed the color to blue. Now we are a prefab. You can also here open the prefab. So why is the prefab so important? Let's say you would like to have a player, or well, it doesn't matter which kind of character you want to create. You want to create maybe more instances of it, so not just one. So it means, let's say I delete that fox now that we have created with so much love. Now we have nothing. If I wouldn't have done any prefab, I wouldn't have it in here, and so I can make as many instances of the fox as I like. And now, and if it would be an enemy, then more so, because then you can create more enemies. And let's say we have here the prefab, we open the prefab and we say we would like to have that, let's say, so we think this is the best one. So we save that, and if we go back, you see all prefab has changed. So any change you make in here, any component that you add, or any effects, or whatever you would like to do, it will automatically apply to all instances of it. That's why a prefab is important. let's go and change that back before I screw that up. So okay, so now we have our prefab. Okay, now it's time to create our character. Well, I mean, you have already your character and you have a prefab, but we need to add in the components that are necessary for the Corgi engine, which is one component which is called character. So if you are here in the prefabs and you go in here to your Fox prefab, you can add the component and add the character to it. Now you have your character component, which is part of the Corgi engine. Here you need to decide some things like would you like to have an artificial intelligence or a player. So for the enemies there will be an AI. In my case I would like to have a player 1. This is the standard naming convention. If you go in here, you see with the mouse, then it said only used if the character is player controlled. So you can get some information if you go in here, and he also tells you you should best is to play safe and have player 1 in here. He will also tell you about the direction, so in which direction is your sprite looking. Maybe you have drawn your character looking into the left, and all those things you need to set in here. The animator is already set because we created it before, so we are at the moment here safe. So then we have here a button which is set, which is called auto build player character. If we click in here, he will get you all the other components that are needed, which I will do. So after auto building our player character, we have now a lot of other components that have been added automatically. So we need definitely the rigid body and the box collider, because those are Unity components which will handle physics and, well, in this case the collider. And if I'm not mistaken, the Corgi engine uses the box collider to have some raycasts which should detect the collision, so we should definitely keep those. Now what do we have else in here? So we have here the Corgi controller, which is definitely the thing that you need, because this handles the collisions and basic movements for your character, so you cannot get rid of that one. Please keep in mind what I will show you in here. We will come back later to it, but there are some collisions for platforms that we'll add, and you find the behaviors in here. Again, we will come back later to this one, but what I want to say is take this Corgi controller. We want them. At the moment I would like to have health. Should I have health? No, let's get rid of it. We will add it later. You see, at the moment I'm just deactivating it because I don't know if I would like to add them into the game. Once I have a more or a clear vision what I would like to do with the game and I would not need health, I will remove the component. At the moment I will leave it just deactivated. Then we have the character bounds, well, the level bounds. You see those level bounds that we had defined here under the level manager. So now you can decide what the character should do if he touches one of them. So if he touches the button, should he be killed or should he be just constrained into it? At the moment, just for testing purposes, I will say constrain. And I would also like to have the character movement horizontally. Now anything else I will deactivate for the moment because I'm eager to test it. So let's save it. So now we have, I think, the most minimal level that we can have, because we don't even have a platform at the moment. We have just cheated a little bit and said that the bottom should be constrained. So that means it is something like a platform. So it means we could start with our first test run. In order to have that, don't forget, the character will be spawned here by level start, by this component. But what kind of character is here under level manager? He will ask you in here on the player prefabs which character is the one that you can play in this scene. You need to click on the adding button and add one component which has the character component in it. So that's our fox. If we drag and drop it in here, then we are ready to test that. So again, we have created our level bounds, and we told him that if he reaches the yellow line, then that's it, he can walk on it, and it should be not possible to jump or anything else, just move left and right. Let's save that and click on play. And you saw how he was in here and went down. So with A and D we can move, and let's try to jump. It's not working. So congratulations if it works for you, because we have set up the most minimal level ever. And now we have here these lines, these raycasts that we find in here. The Corgi engine, the collision is detected by all those things. So if you have these strange lines which doesn't match with your fox, means let's go in here to see what I mean. So you see, it's like he's touching our side, our walls, but he's not. That means we have not set up that box collider right. We will do that now. But as a test, we were successful now. So now we would like to correct those lines that we saw. Well, the problems are not the lines, it's the collider that we set up wrong. So the box collider is wrong. You should edit it, but if I click in here, you have here nothing, so you don't know what's going on. So the trick in here is to open the prefab, and then if you go here under box collider and you click the edit collider, then you see where the collider is set at the moment. Why it's so big? To be honest, I have no clue why he did it automatically like that. So let's move that a little bit around. Let's make it a little bit smaller, because some things I learned when I started to do some little platformers. One of those is there is something like the coyote time, and there is also the colliders, which should be, in the case of the player, he should be a little bit smaller than the character itself. It makes just more fun, or you can say it makes it less unfair. Let's say if somebody shoots him here just in the left corner of the ear or something like that. So that's why you should have it a little bit optimal for the player. It makes more fun. The second thing is these offsets. You see 0.02 and so on. So in that case, it just makes sense if you click on 0 and that's it. And here maybe minus 0.4, something like that. Yep. So 117, that's okay, and 1. I think that's good. So I like to keep the numbers, not, I don't know how many digits in here, so let's try to keep that more or less small. Okay. Well, that's it. Let's try that out now. So if I go and play it again, then he's much smaller and he goes in here. Perfect. That's what I wanted.